And we are live. So, welcome everyone to the live stream. So, once again, I'm going live after the race. So, today we are actually going to start this stream a little bit later than usual. So, I think it's better to do these streams on Mondays rather than on Sundays because we get a few moments to actually digest the race. But now let's actually wait for some people to tune in. So, I see that I've got one people here right now. So, in today's live stream, we are going to take a look at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Now, this is a stream that's bound to get a little bit controversial because I really have some strong opinions on this race and on this racetrack, and I've expressed some of them in the past. And today we are going to take a look at them once again because I think that they are very relevant to everything that's happening. But I think we can begin by now. So, as always, you can let me know all of your questions and all of your comments on what I'm talking about on the live chat. So, this week I'm not able to have the live chat window working here on the stream, but I can see your comments in real time. I'm looking at them right now, actually. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin talking and reviewing the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. You can see on your screen right now some of the best moments from the race, and we'll get to them one by one. But as with always, let's start by taking a look at the race results. Okay, so this was a very, very interesting race, and as you can see from the race results, there were a lot of DNFs. So we only had 12 finishers, and we are going to get into that a little bit later, but this was certainly a crazy race. Okay, so as you know, Max Verstappen won the race from Charles Leclerc. It was an epic battle, and we are going to discuss it in detail. And Charles Leclerc actually managed to get the fastest lap point, which can be very important for the championship, as we saw last year. And here are the dogs. I'm very sorry. I'm trying not to have to do anything. Okay, they shut up. Then we had Carlos Sainz in third place and Sergio Perez in fourth place. I'm actually gutted for Sergio Perez. Once again, we are going to talk a little bit about that in a few moments. Then we had George Russell in the Mercedes ahead of Lewis Hamilton. George Russell had a much better weekend than Hamilton on the whole, and I think he performed very, very well. Given the car that he had underneath him, I think he pulled the most out of the car that he could. And then we had Esteban Ocon, which is one of the drivers that I honestly don't know how he managed to finish this race, because he had a crazy battle with his teammate Fernando Alonso, where I was just picturing them both at the wall at any moment, and it was a crazy battle, and it was very, very good and almost clean racing, but it was very odd to see Alpine let their two drivers in the points paying positions being able to fight so freely. Then we had Lando Norris, the first points for the McLaren, and Pierre Gasly with his first points of the season for AlphaTauri. Once again in the points we have Kevin Magnussen. What a comeback story this is for Haas and for Kevin Magnussen. And then in a very unusual P10 we have Lewis Hamilton. So we are going to get into Lewis Hamilton's weekend in depth in just a few moments. Then P11 we have Guan Yu Zhou. So again, a very, very good performance to almost get himself in the points again. And I think that for a rookie, this was a very, very good performance. Then in 12th place, the last of the finishers, we had Nico Hülkenberg. And I'm not sure if this graph is right. Were there only 13 finishers? Let me know in the comments, please. I'm right now thinking there may be a problem with this graph, but I'm going to verify that in just a moment. So then we start with the DNFs. So we had Lance Stroll and Alex Albon, which had a collision in the dying laps, which actually had a very, very big impact on the race result. And then we had Valtteri Bottas, Fernando Alonso, and Daniel Ricciardo all DNFing for similar reasons, actually. So it seemed like on the same lap, all of their power units, which are from 3 different manufacturers, so Alonso in the Alpine, Bottas with the Ferrari, and Ricciardo with the Mercedes, they all failed around the same lap, which was very, very intriguing and actually triggered a lot of events on the race that we are going to talk about, and triggered a lot of very interesting things regarding the new race direction that we are seeing this year, which were very interesting. Then we have Nicolas Latifi, the only driver to actually DNF through only his fault. So Nicolas Latifi was a driver that went into the wall. Now thankfully Nicolas is okay, but he went 2 times into the wall in the weekend, so he went in qualifying and now in the race. So he really needs to get his act together, because even though his teammate also didn't finish the race, and even though it was arguably his fault, Alex Albon is already beating Nicolas Latifi in a team where he's new, and I don't rate Alex Albon that highly, so it's very interesting to see that Latifi is being beaten by him. Then we had the two did not starts of Yuki Tsunoda and Mick Schumacher, so that's why there's an asterisk next to their name, because it wasn't actually a did not finish, it was a did not start. So when it comes to Mick Schumacher, you all know that Mick had a massive crash in qualifying, and we are definitely going to talk about that, because even though the crash might have been Mick's fault, I'm not sure, only he knows that for sure. I think that we are going to have to talk a lot about this track, and we are going to have to do that in detail, and I want to hear your thoughts. So if there's anyone in the live chat right now, start writing up what you think about this track and what you think about this Grand Prix as a whole, because we are definitely going to have a very, very deep conversation about this. Then when it comes to Yuki Tsunoda, wow, this has me very worried for Red Bull's title chances, because Yuki Tsunoda had a did not start because on his way to the grid, he actually is on the power unit, or Red Bull powertrains, whatever you want to call it, just stopped working. And this is a very worrying sign for me, because these Red Bull powertrains don't seem reliable at all. And now in just a span of 2 races, we had Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, then I think we had Pierre Gasly in the last race. Yes, he caught on fire. And now Yuki Tsunoda. I mean, these powertrains don't seem reliable at all. I'm sorry, my chair is running away. These powertrains don't seem reliable at all, and when it comes to a team like AlphaTauri, this can really affect their championship position. But when it comes to Red Bull, this can affect their title hopes, and it arguably already has, because Max Verstappen has already lost out on what were 18 points at the Bahrain Grand Prix. Okay. But now that we know the race results, and again, please let me know, I have the race results right here. So yes, DNF from P14. So I'm missing someone who didn't DNF actually, because here it says that, oh, okay, Lance Stroll technically didn't DNF, but he did DNF. So there's a little bit of a mistake here, but Lance Stroll, according to the official results, didn't DNF, but he actually did DNF. And just let me check if my live chat is working, because I definitely want to talk with you guys. Okay, it's working fine. Okay, let me just, sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm new to streaming and I'm having a little bit of issues with the chat today. Okay, so let me just open up my windows. Okay, perfect. So now we are going to actually take a look at a few talking points. So we are going to start by talking about the situation that there is in Saudi Arabia, because I honestly have a lot to talk about, and I was wondering if I should raise my voice, and I really think I need to, because a lot of other media outlets are doing the same, and I think that what happened this week in Formula 1 is really something that cannot really happen again. And then we are going to talk about Formula 1 TV, because I have a small little rant about Formula 1 TV, and I have a lot of things to say. Then we are going to take a look at the Max Verstappen versus Charles Leclerc epic battle, honestly, one of the best on-track battles that we have seen over the last couple of years. And I know I've said this about the Bahrain Grand Prix, but I'm going to say this again over the... I'm going to say this again for the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, because this was epic. Then, as I said, we are going to take a look at the Mercedes and their reliability, and not reliability, and their performance, and then we are going to talk about all of them DNFs. Okay, so now let's actually start talking about this situation. Excuse me. So this is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and it's actually very controversial. It's a very controversial race in a very controversial country. And I've heard a lot of podcasts, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to wait for today to make this live stream, was to get my mind wrapped around the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So we are going to start talking about the country situation itself and then the racetrack itself. Oops, I have a little mistake on the image right there. Okay, so as you know, on Friday during free practice 1, a missile hit one of the a central from one of Formula One's main sponsors, Aramco, in Saudi Arabia, and this was a terrorist attack. There was a terrorist group that reivindicated the attack, and this is a very, very severe occasion. We reset, okay, because all of the drivers actually didn't want to race in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. There were meetings until around 4 a.m. in the day of in Friday with all of the drivers, all of the team principals, and it actually seemed like nobody actually wanted to race in Saudi Arabia. All of the drivers, all of the teams were actually feeling very unsafe there, and I just can't wrap my head around how money actually talked louder than safety in this circumstance, with a literal missile falling very close to the track. And I just don't know how Formula One could actually allow the race to start. Just imagine, I don't want to, but just imagine for a second what would happen if something like that happened during a live racetrack, during a Grand Prix, with the whole world, with the world watching. It would be horrible, and I don't want to imagine it. But I just think that the way in which the Saudi Arabian track organizers actually handled this was very, very bad, because they clearly pushed for the race to happen. And I saw an article on the BBC, and I'm not sure if this is confirmed, but if it is, this is very severe, where it actually said that drivers, the Saudi Arabian official said that drivers or teams that boycotted the Grand Prix would have a very hard time actually leaving the country. Now, this for me is a clear threat to Formula One, to their drivers and to their teams. And I'm not even going into the human rights abuses that happen in Saudi Arabia. Now, this is a country that has a very big history of human rights abuses, and I'm going to be honest, we shouldn't race there. I've heard a podcast from the race, and you should check it out, where Mark Hughes and Scott Mitchell from the race actually were having a discussion on whether Formula One should go racing to countries based on their UN index, actually Human Rights Index, and that only countries above a certain threshold should be able to host a Grand Prix. And I completely agree with this. I think that we cannot go to these kinds of countries just because they have money. We need to, if Formula One is to be a global sport, if Formula One is to be a sport that's worried about current affairs and it's worried about the current state of the world, we need to stop racing in countries that don't respect the basic human rights and human needs. And Saudi Arabia is one of those countries, and I think we should not race there. So, in my opinion, and I see that Matthew, you agree with me, and thank you, Holly, for the great comment. Thank you very much. Okay, but now let's actually talk about the track in Saudi Arabia. Because we need to actually discuss this track, because it's not only the current country situation that worries me, it's also actually the track. Because I don't know how about you guys, this track actually made for a great race today, but this is the only Formula One track where I'm actually worried for the drivers every single second that the race is on, and I really don't want to be in this state while I'm watching a Grand Prix. So this is a track that had a very severe incident with Mick Schumacher, that last year had very severe incidents in Formula 1 and Formula 2, and it's just a track where I'm constantly worried for what is going to happen to my favorite drivers and to everyone in the sport, because this is a track where crashes are the norm and not the exception. So I think that this layout and this track as a whole was built in a rush, and I just think that this layout should not be approved. And I was hearing a discussion the other day saying that having the fastest street circuit didn't make any sense. Why would you want to have the world's fastest street circuit? That's not cool, that's just dangerous. And I know I'm sounding like I'm hating on this track and on this country, but I honestly just think that there are so many problems here that we cannot ignore, that someone needs to talk about this. And I know that a lot of journalists are already talking about this, but I want to join in and actually beg for us not to come race here again. I'm just too worried about this track, and thankfully everyone so far is okay when it comes to crashes out of this track, but I don't think that will be the case for longer. Okay, but that's enough about this track and about this layout. You have my opinion. I don't think we should race here, and even though I think we are going to race here, because Saudi Arabia really pays a lot of money to Formula One in order to have a race. I think that we are going to have to do something, and Formula One is going to have to do something regarding this, with the missile situation, with the human rights abuse, and with the dangerous layout, and with the threats that were made. I just think that we cannot race here. Okay, but now let's talk about more happy things, including Formula One TV. Oh wait, this is not a happy thing. So Formula One TV and the whole broadcast as a general this week, honestly, was very bad. And it was bad enough that it prompted some... Oh, let me actually just read your comments. It's actually better without the runoff, which was surprising when I learned about it. So do you mean that the track was better without the runoff that they added this year? Or that... is that what you mean? Okay, let me know in the... do a follow-up comment to let me know. Okay, but now let's actually talk about Formula One TV, because Formula One TV coverage this weekend was very, very bad, and it actually prompted a response from the Formula One community, which is something that I really have not seen before. So I have here this article, and hopefully you guys can still see me, from WTF1, and I completely agree with everything that they are saying. So this is called an open letter to the Formula One race directors, and you can actually see a link to this article if you guys want to read it in the comments down below. Not in the comments, in the description, I'm sorry, but I can actually post it in the comments if you guys want to get to it right now. And I think that we are going to have to take a close read at this, because during this race in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, we had a lot of replays, and this tweet actually says it all. Stop showing replays, stop showing the crowd, stop crowd shots. We want to see the race. And I think that even though sometimes I don't agree with comments from WTF1, I really agree with this article, and they make some very good points. But their most important point around here is that Formula One is supposed to be a live sport. And if you guys know me, or if you have talked to me, you know that one of the main gripes that I have with the transmission of Formula One is that during the third lap of the race, we spend the entire lap watching the start replay. No matter what's happening on screen, no matter what the action is, we always spend the third lap of the race, and this is something that I really want you guys to start noticing. We always spend the third lap of the race watching replays, and this just destroys the whole... it actually destroys the whole... flow of the race for me. But this weekend it was especially bad, because this weekend we have a very good fight for the front in the first couple of laps between Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, and then over the course of the race, when Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen were fighting, we had an epic battle on our hands. And instead of showing the live action, we were actually watching replays from everything that had happened just like 5 to 10 seconds before. And honestly, Formula One is live, and as BBC said, you only go live once. You cannot repeat live action, you cannot repeat the emotion that a thing has when you're watching it live through a replay, and Formula One needs to actually trust their audience in order to remember more than 10 seconds of a race. They need to trust their audience to watch the live action, and I think that this was something that the Formula One TV directors actually failed very, very bad during this race, because we need to watch the action live. Like, if Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc are going into a DRS zone and into a potential overtaking opportunity, I don't want to see last laps or last DRS zones overtaking opportunity. I want to see everything that's happening right now. And I see your comment here, Matthew. It is better that they shunt right in the wall instead of the long runoff, which could turn the car in a more dangerous position. I tend to agree with you. I just think that the problem with the wall being so close to the track is the same thing that happened at Spa, is that the car, once it hits the wall, can be projected right back to the track. And I think that's the issue that they were aiming to solve with enlarging some of parts of the track, because we really don't want to see cars that are broken into, such as what happened with Mick Schumacher, being projected back into the track. Okay, so back to the talking points, the fight between... And now for some positivity, because this stream has been about a little bit negative for the last 20 minutes. So now let's get into the positives of the race. So Charles Leclerc versus Max Verstappen. Wow, this was epic. This was honestly one of the best battles that I have ever seen. And there was something about the ways in which Charles and Max were using the DRS zones and the DRS detection point that really made me appreciate this race a lot. That really made me appreciate this race a lot, because these drivers were not fighting just for the sake of fighting. They were not fighting wheel to wheel, just like these two from Alpine were. They were fighting in the most smart way that I've ever seen Formula 1 drivers fight. So instead of just going for it, just being the fastest around the lap, they were playing with a very tactically with the DRS line. So the DRS line is this one that you see in this picture right here, where the safety car is going over, and they were playing with this line in a way that I've never seen before. So this was true. My heart was pumping during this race, because Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen were trying everything in their power to actually stay behind the other, going into the DRS line in order to have DRS into the main straight. And this was a very respectful battle, as you can see from this picture right here of them after the race actually hugging. This was a very good battle from the two, and it was one of the most tactical battles that I have seen on track in Formula 1 for the last couple of years. And it was very good to see drivers being able to battle on track for lap after lap after lap, instead of only relying on pit strategies just like we did in 2020, 2021, etc. Over the last couple of years. They were able to battle this on track, and this image right here for me is honestly the best. I'm going to, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Okay, let me just try to pause the image right here. Okay, so this image right here, it really tells it all. Both drivers actually locking up in order to try and get the other pass into the DRS zone first. This was very epic. Now, there were a few moments where I was afraid that both of them decelerating, and if you remember 2021, this should be a very familiar picture, because you can actually remember Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen with that brake test situation, as Lewis Hamilton called it, where actually Max lifted off so much that Lewis hit the back of his car. And I was watching this race situation, and I was thinking that the same was going to happen, but of course that the tensions are much lower, because now it's the beginning of the season and they are not fighting for the championship just yet. I think that they are going to start going to fight in championship mode in just 2 or 3 races, but I think that the way in which they were fighting for this DRS zone was very interesting, and I honestly think that both of them were giving it their all, and it was a very impressive fight. Now, it was also very good to see from these cars that they were able to follow each other through the entire track. So Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari had a massive advantage on sector 1, and then Max Verstappen caught up in sectors 2 and 3, but the cars were able to follow and battle for lap after lap after lap. Now, once Max Verstappen got through, he had the advantage of having the better power unit with the best straight line speed, and he was running a little bit less wing than Leclerc, so that's how he was able to stay in front. But it was an epic battle through and through, and I really loved it. Now, I must say that Charles was very unlucky, because remember that shunt between Lance Stroll and Alex Albon that I was talking to you guys about? Well, Max Verstappen had already passed Charles by that point, but Charles was giving it his all in order to catch Max Verstappen back up again. And then once he finally reached a point where he was going to get into this straight right here, the main straight with DRS, well then what happens in corner 1? Alex Albon and Lance Stroll actually hit each other, and this disables DRS. And from this point on, this was race over for Leclerc, because I think that if he had been able to open DRS in that race, I think that he would have been able to pass Max Verstappen, but even still, I think he was very unlucky. But this was a fair battle. This was way better to watch than the battles between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, because both drivers showed a lot of respect from each other, and it was very good to watch. And honestly, take a look at this picture right here. I think you guys are looking at the championship contenders for the 2022 Formula 1 season. Now, I think right now it's advantage Ferrari, because their power unit seems to be way more reliable than the Red Bull Powertrain's power unit. And I think that their car just seems to suit all of the tracks a little bit better than the Red Bull. I think the Red Bull has an advantage on the straights, but I think that overall the Ferrari is just that little bit better. And I think that over the next couple of races, we are going to see what I'm talking about with the reliability of the Red Bull powertrains, and I just think that Max Verstappen is going to start suffering a little bit with that, such as all of the other Red Bull drivers already have. Okay, and more talking points right now. Okay, so now let's actually talk a little bit about Mercedes, the reigning world champions. Well, I don't really want to talk a lot about their race because their race was a little bit slow. So Lewis Hamilton did a great job. As you can see here in the race results, Lewis Hamilton did a very good job to stay out of the trouble and to get himself into the points. Even though, fun fact, Lewis Hamilton didn't know that 10th place paid point. He had to ask his engineer because he's just not used to staying there. So, hello friend, how are you doing? I see you in the chat. So, I think that Lewis Hamilton did a great job getting himself out of the trouble that we had in the midfield, where is a position that he's not actually used to being on. And I think that Lewis Hamilton did a very good job to get himself into the points. But if you guys want to sign off that Mercedes is not sandbagging and that there's actually a problem with this car, just look at Lewis Hamilton's P16 out in Q1 qualifying, his worst qualifying session, but by far in the last, I need to say 10 years. I can't remember, honestly, Lewis Hamilton qualifying so badly in the last years. And I think that this was a very big sign that the Mercedes really has some problems and that this is not them sandbagging. This is not a problem with setup in a race-by-race basis. I think that in this race they really made a big step up and that they are going to be best of the rest. But I just think that this car looks very, very tricky to drive. And something that's actually surprising me is that through the last couple of races, it actually looks to be Lewis Hamilton to have more troubles. Now, mind you that Mercedes had a lot of issues with Hamilton's strategy because they were going long on the hard tires. And then Hamilton really had bad timing with that pit, with those cars at the DNF, so Alonso, Bottas and Ricciardo actually blocking the pit lane entry, because if they hadn't blocked the pit lane entry, I think that Hamilton could have pitted and then he could have been way up higher in the points. But even still, a very troubling race for Mercedes. They really struggled with the pace all weekend. Russell had no way of catching up to the top four, and Hamilton really looked in no man's land for the whole race. He did a few good moves. He had a very good battle with Kevin Magnussen, but just the fact that Hamilton is battling with Magnussen actually tells you everything you need to know about the Mercedes. I think it's going to be a very... Whoops, something fell. I think it's going to be a very, very troubling season for the world champions, and I just think that the championship is going to be between Ferrari and Red Bull, and not between Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull. I think that those two teams are standing up above and beyond, and I think that even if Mercedes is able to fix their car, I think they are not going to be in the championship fight. They are going to be P3 at the best case scenario. Okay, and someone that I actually forgot to talk about, but that I want to talk to, is actually Sergio Perez. So Sergio Perez, for me, had the best weekend of his career by far this weekend, even better than that race he won at Sakir last year. But I think that he had a very, very good weekend. So Sergio, as you know, got his maiden pole position with a brilliant lap. And honestly, who was expecting Sergio to be in front of Max? Let me know, please. And if you guys want to join my predictions league, I have a predictions league actually on Grid Rival, and you guys can check it out from the link in the description below. And I was taking a look at the teams, and very, very few people were choosing Sergio Perez. So nobody had a lot of faith in Sergio for this weekend or for the previous couple of weekends, but he just managed to put it on pole. He beat Max, who was only P4. He beat both of the Ferraris that were honestly faster cars around this track, and I just think that it was an amazing lap from Perez. And once the race started, he just had the best start out of anyone in the grid. He was going to win this race. But I think that Sergio and Red Bull actually fell down in a little bit of a trap. Okay, so they had the most by far. They pitted on the lap previous to the safety car, so they pitted, and on that same lap, Latifi crashed, so they pitted just before the safety car, and from that point on, Sergio Perez's race was actually ruined. But the reason why they pitted but the reason that they pitted just before the safety car, I think, was a little bit of a trap from Leclerc and from Ferrari. So if you take a look at Leclerc's radio, right on the beginning of the lap where Sergio Perez pitted, Charles Leclerc started saying on the radio, pit to overtake, box to overtake. And then his engineers actually told him, copy box to overtake. And didn't you guys find this a little odd? Why would Ferrari be telling box to overtake over the radio multiple times during a lap when they know it's an open radio channel? So even if the radio signal wasn't broadcast to the world by the TV, Red Bull has people listening to other teams' radios. Actually, if you didn't know, every single team has an open radio, so every team on the grid has people listening to other people's radio. So someone back at the factory would be listening to Leclerc's radio, of course, and they would have immediately told Red Bull management they are going to pit. So they knew. Even if this didn't get to the world feed, they knew. So why would Leclerc, and my question is, why would Leclerc be telling the whole world through the world feed that they were going to pit to overtake? So not only were they revealing their strategy, but all of their purpose. They were saying that they were going for the undercut, and right from the beginning of the lap, in a track that has a very, very long lap, why would they be telling this if they really intended to do it? And something that you don't know about, a lot of you don't know about Formula 1 cars, is that engineers can actually see the buttons that the driver presses on the steering wheel. And they actually got a button called pit confirm. So if the drivers really want to make a secret strategy decision in order to undercut the driver to surprise him, well, Charles certainly has a combination with his engineers where he presses the pit confirm button a set number of times, confirm button, and then have a secret undercut that Red Bull wouldn't be able to predict. I just don't know, and I just think that Red Bull fell into their trap. Now, this wouldn't be a big problem. If Red Bull had undercut Ferrari by one lap, I think that this was not going to be a big problem. So even if Leclerc went long from that point on, I think that it was not going to be a very, very big problem. But unfortunately for Perez, the worst thing that could happen actually happened, and we have got pictures from it right here, and it was this. So Nicolas Latifi actually crashed. Now this was the worst possible timing for Sergio Perez. He had just came out of the pits and bam, safety car. Now what all of this means is that both Leclerc, Verstappen and Sainz were able to pit, and they were able to get in front of Sergio with the same fresh set of tires as Sergio. So from this point on, he really had no option, and he even had that incident with Carlos Sainz where coming out of the pits, Sainz was actually a little bit ahead, but Perez actually overtook him, so he needed to give that position back. So honestly, from that point on, there was nothing that Sergio could do. Now, I really rate Sergio very, very well, but I just think that he's not a driver to make those kinds of moves. So once he got stuck behind Carlos Sainz, I think that that was race over for him, and I think it was a really big shame for Perez. I really enjoy him, and it was a very big shame for me to see Perez lose the race like that. As I said, this was his best weekend so far up to that point, and I think he's going to win. And I think he's going to win more than one race in 2021, in 2022. I'm sorry, I'm still stuck in last year. But I think that this race, unfortunately, wasn't his race, but he really deserved this win. And I think that it was really stolen from him with a bad timing from the safety car. But I really want to say that I was not expecting Red Bull to fall on Ferrari's trap, even if there was no safety car. I was not understanding why Red Bull fell so easily in Ferrari's trap. This was clearly a trap. Why would Leclerc be saying this from the word go? And this was really a moment that really made me lose a little bit of faith in Red Bull's strategy team, because I really don't know what they were thinking. Okay, so now before we get into all the DNFs part, we are actually going to read a few messages. So, what's up, Inverted Free Solo? What's up, Kraina? I hope I said your name right. Okay, so let's start by reading Matthew's comment from just a little bit before. Okay, so we already got that one. Okay, so, sorry, the dogs are barking. Do you think that Barcelona day all teams will bring new parts because it's close to Italy, England, and Switzerland. Okay, I understand your point. You are saying that teams are going to bring new parts to Barcelona because it's close to all of their headquarters, and I definitely think so. I'm not expecting new parts in Australia because in Australia the cars it's really too far away and the shipments are already on their way to Australia, and I don't think that teams want to waste some of their budget cap in order to fly new parts to Australia. I don't think that they are going to do that. So I'm expecting all of the developments to already be in production in order for them to be ready to Barcelona. So if I'm not mistaken, let me just check my F1 calendar here. Barcelona is after Australia. No, yeah, after Australia we have the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Miami Grand Prix, and then a Spanish Grand Prix. Well, actually seeing the calendar right now, I think that they may bring some developments to the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix because it's not that far away from Switzerland and from England, and it's in Italy. So I think that we are going to see some developments at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. So after not seeing a lot of developments in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, I definitely don't expect to see development for the Australian Grand Prix because they were going to have to need to fly those developments a long way. And I think that it's not worth it for a track like Australia, a street circuit. And I think that Emilia-Romagna with Imola, a track where they have a lot of data, is really a better track to do so. But I think that for Spain, which actually falls a little bit further away in the year in May, we are going to see upgrades. Teams love to bring updates to Spain because since they have tested in Spain, it's really a very good measure for them for how their development is going. So expect some very, very big upgrade packages in Spain, but I think that we are going to see some minor upgrades at Emilia-Romagna, or as I like to call him, the Grand Prix, the Grande Premio del Made in Italy y dell'Emilia Romagna, which is the official name of the race for some reason. Okay, so now we are going to actually talk a little bit about the DNFs and a little bit about my standout teams. So once again, Ferrari and Red Bull, my standout teams. I really don't need to explain to you why. Both of them operated very, very well. And so did Alpine. So Alpine, even though they were trying to destroy each other for most of the race, I think that they had a very, very good race. So I know that Fernando didn't finish the race, but Esteban actually managed to finish in a very, very good position. And it's now for the second race in a row that Alpine is getting points, and they are getting very, very good points. Now, I know that Alpine is actually a factory team, and that we don't want to see them where they are, but I think it's a very, very good start to the season. And Alpine actually has me excited because they seem to be starting to copy the Ferrari design, which actually works very well, and their car is already quite good. So I'm expecting to see Alpine going up and up and up throughout the season. And honestly, I would not be surprised to see Alpine challenging Mercedes at some point in the season. So in this kind of so-and-so territory, we have Mercedes. So terrible qualifying session for Lewis Hamilton, but he managed to get up to P10 and stay away from trouble during the race. And for George Russell, this is a plus-minus team for me, and the plus actually almost all comes from George Russell. So he was able to drag that car up to P5 in Q3, which was an amazing qualifying lap from George Russell. Mr. Saturday is back. And then on the race, even though his race was almost not caught on TV, I think we had a very, very interesting race from him. He managed to keep in P5, managed to keep himself in the points and score some very good points for Mercedes. And I think that is exactly what the team needs. And he's now ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the championship, which is definitely a very interesting dynamic. So in the minus, we have AlphaTauri. So of course, Pierre Gasly actually managed to score a few points, but Yuki Tsunoda did not start, so not even a did not finish, actually a did not start. And then we had Williams, which was by far the worst team this weekend because they had two drivers who actually crashed out of the race through their entire own fault. So after watching some replays of that Albon Stroll incident, I definitely placed the blame on Albon. I think he just was way overly ambitious going into Lance Stroll, and he hit him on the side. Now, this is something that I expected to see throughout the season. As I told you in my season preview, I expected to see some understeer into the car, into the sidebar. I expected to see some understeer into the side pod of your opponent moments, and I think that this is definitely one of those moments. But that coupled with Nicolas Latifi just crashing out of the race entirely by his own, I think that this was one of the worst races for Williams that we have seen in a long time. And I think that they were doing very, very well last year. I really want to see that trend continue, but I think that this year their car with the Mercedes power unit and with our driver lineup is just not going well for them. And I'm very worried because we are starting to see a pattern with Nicolas Latifi in street circuits, and it's not a very good pattern because we actually have some street circuits still to go. So we still have Monaco and Baku at least, and Miami is expected to be a street circuit, I think. So I'm really worried for their performances in those races. And then we have Aston Martin, which honestly, let's just take a look at the race result here. Aston Martin here with the DNF and with Hülkenberg actually finishing P12, but that was the last of the finishers. I think that as with all of the Mercedes power teams, Aston Martin is struggling a lot, but I actually did not expect this from them. So I actually watched the predictions from another Formula 1 YouTuber, Tomo, and he expected Aston Martin to be way down in the order, such as they are, but I definitely did not expect a team with such a high budget and with so big hype behind them. So this was one of the most hyped for teams before the season started. I did not expect them to see with 0 points after these races, and let's actually take a look at the point standings. So let's go to Formula1.com. I know you guys aren't watching my screen yet, but I'm going to fix that in a moment. Let me just open the constructor standings. Okay, and now you can actually see my display. Okay, so very good. So you can see right here, let me just make my face a little bit smaller. Perfect. Okay, so you can see right here that Ferrari is leading the Constructors' Championship with 78 points. Then we have Mercedes on 38, Red Bull at 37. I definitely expect those positions to swap at the next race if there aren't any reliability issues. Then we have Alpine, Haas, Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri, McLaren, and Aston Martin. So McLaren actually managed to get a few points on the board, but still less than AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and Haas. So you can see that the bottom three teams actually being Mercedes power teams is very worrying. And honestly, I don't know what's happened with the Mercedes power unit. I don't know if it's a reliability thing where they are having to run the power unit a little bit lower in order to keep it, or if it's the way in which the Mercedes power unit is integrated into these cars, but it's just not working out for them. But in the Mercedes, they seem to have a very, very good top end speed in their own car, so I really don't know what's happening there, and I just hope to see at least some of these teams actually make their way up the grid, because you can see that the Ferrari power teams managed to be much better than last year, and the Red Bull power teams managed to stay about on the same pace. So Ferrari actually caught up to Red Bull, but then Mercedes just fell way down, and now it's seeming like Renault is actually on about the same level as all of them. So thankfully we have 3 engine manufacturers on about the same power level, which is very good because Alpine was really falling back from last year, and you guys need to remember that the engines are actually frozen. So the engines are actually frozen, and this is very worrying for a team like Mercedes because they can be stuck with this engine up until 2025, and I'm including 2025 on that because right now the engines are actually frozen. You can only make an upgrade up until September into your hybrid powertrain, so the internal combustion engine and everything is actually sealed and done for the season and up until 2025, and you can only make one more upgrade to your hybrid powertrain, but after that you can only make and after that you are locked, and you can only make upgrades for reliability reasons. And that Mercedes power unit doesn't seem too unreliable, even though Daniel Ricciardo had a DNF. But so I'm very worried for them because I just don't think that they are going to be able to upgrade that engine, and they are going to be stuck with it for a lot of seasons. And maybe McLaren, Aston Martin, and Williams are going to be able to integrate that power unit a little bit better into their cars, but I'm just not seeing a bright future for those teams. And I honestly think that honestly am a little bit worried about those teams. So talking a little bit about the DNFs, When it comes to Lance Stroll and Alex Albon, we already talked about them, so it was a big crash from those two. And on my opinion, it was Albon's fault. I really don't like to fall into the racing incident camp. I just think that nowadays in Formula One there aren't that many racing incidents. The fault is usually almost to blame at one of the drivers, and in this case, I think it was almost 100% Alex Albon's. Then we have Valtteri Bottas, reliability issue. On the same lap, Fernando Alonso, reliability issue. On the same lap, Daniel Ricciardo, reliability issue. So these engines with the E10 fuels definitely seem to be suffering more from reliability than last year. Now, I'm not sure if this is due to the fuel or if this is due to teams trying new engine architectures out, but I think that a race with this many DNFs is something that we haven't seen for a very long time, and I'm quite worried for these teams. When it comes to Latifi, he crashed. Tsunoda had a power unit failure, and we need to talk a little bit about Mick Schumacher. I knew I was missing something, and just before we end the stream, so I'm going to try to keep the stream to up to an hour. So if you guys have any comments that you still want to leave in the stream, please do so right now for me to answer them after we talk about Mick Schumacher. So Mick Schumacher, I'm not showing the pictures right here out of respect, because in this case Nicolas Latifi hit the wall, but he was fine. He was out of the car in just a moment. But when it comes to Mick Schumacher, that was the mother of all shunts. That was a very, very, very big shunt. And honestly, this is what I mean when I'm talking about this track. When I say that I'm worried about when I say that I'm worried about watching racing in this track, and that I think it's way too dangerous. The crash that Mick Schumacher had was way too violent. We cannot go at such high speeds in tracks such like this. And Matthew, to actually answer a comment from you from before, you say that you don't want to see bigger runoffs in this track, but just look at what happened with Mick Schumacher. He hit the track in the one side, and he was projected to the other side. Now, thankfully, there was no other car passing through, but it was a live qualifying session, so it could have been hit, or another driver could have been hit in that situation. So that's why I think we need a higher security, and that's why this track makes me real nervous, because if an incident like this happens in lap 1 of the race, God knows how many people are going to get hurt. And the track barriers clearly weren't adequate at that point in the race, so it was a hard wall. And if you guys don't know, walls need to be deformable in order to absorb the impact from a Formula 1 car. So where Mick Schumacher crashed, it was a very, very high speed section, and it had a very hard wall, so Mick definitely got hurt, and it took way too long for him to get out of the car. He was definitely shook after that accident, and I honestly had my heart in my hands for the whole time. I could not unglue myself from the screen until I knew that Mick was okay. I had Formula 1 TV on one screen, I had Twitter on the other, refresh in order to find out if Mick was okay. And that's not a feeling that I want to have when I'm watching Formula 1. When I'm watching Formula 1, I want to be excited. I want to know that the drivers are giving it their all without the danger of them getting hurt. Of course that they are going at very, very high speeds. There's always, at every single track, even in the slowest section of the slowest track in the calendar, there's a chance for drivers to get hurt. But we need to talk about probabilities, we need to talk about safety, and we need to talk about equipment. So in this track, it's very, very likely that an accident is going to happen. I think I don't speak only for myself when I say that every single lap of this race, I'm just waiting for an accident to happen at any second. And even teams are actually accounting for safety cars in all of their strategy. So I'm clearly not alone. Then we need to take into account about the safety. So Formula 1 cars are designed to crash, and they are getting heavier through the last couple of years in order to have more safety features, but they cannot survive impacts like this. The fact that Mick's car broke into so many pieces was actually a very good thing to see, because as you know, once the car breaks into many pieces, it's actually energy from the crash that's being dissipated. So very good on that front to see that the safety features are working. But even though the car was safe, the track was not. The track had a very hard wall, so it was a very big impact for poor Mick. And honestly, I'm very thankful that he is okay. But I think that if we keep going to this track, it's only a matter of time until someone is not okay. And honestly, for me, my thing of the weekend award, my top thing, the best thing that happened this weekend was Mick Schumacher being okay. So I'm very thankful for that, but I just think that we cannot race in this track anymore. And just like that, I have a comment here from Inverted Free Solo, which says, are we thinking that this is the last time they race in Saudi Arabia? Seems like they just wanted to get out of there without any trouble. Well, I'm not one to say what's going to happen, but I hope that this was the last time that we raced in Saudi Arabia. And if not the last time that we raced in Saudi Arabia, I hope that this was the last time that we raced around this layout. I just think that this is not a good track for any kind of racing, not Formula 1, not Formula 2, not Formula 3, and you can insert any other motorsport category in this sentence. I think it's not an adequate track, it's not a safe track, and honestly, I'm not watching Formula 1 in order to watch drivers crash. I don't like crashes. I hate them. Actually, I get so worried about the drivers once they crash. And I really don't want to see this track here. And you can compare crashes such as the one that Latifi and Mick had to what happened at Monaco with Charles Leclerc last year. Okay, he crashed in qualifying. His car was broken up into pieces, but not for a single second the speeds were high enough that you thought that Charles was going to get severely hurt. And in this track, it's just not the same case. So due to all of the factors that we have talked about in this live stream, I really hope that Formula 1 doesn't return to Saudi Arabia and that we pick tracks that really have tracks in countries that respect the same values that Formula 1 is trying to achieve. Because if Formula 1 say that they want to be an open sport, if they want to have an initiative such as We Race as One, which they have now dropped for some reason, if they want to have those kinds of initiatives, if they want to worry about the environment and about the world that we live in, we just cannot race in this track. I'm sorry if I got a little bit too much into this topic, but I just hope that we don't return to this track. I really hope that from next year on, we find another replacement in the calendar. We have so many great circuits that could be in the place of this one. We have both tracks in Germany, the Nürburgring and Hockenheim. We have tracks such as Portimão. We have tracks such as, I think Valencia is still operational for Formula 1 standards. We have tracks in Italy such as Mugello, which are not in the calendar. We have an amazing circuit in Malaysia that we are not using for some reason. There are so many tracks that we could be using. Put 5 races in the United States. I honestly don't care. Just please don't come back here. This is a request, and a lot of people are actually putting their voices behind this, and I want to add mine to this. So unless you guys have got any further comments, and I'm going to wait a little bit to see that because we have got a little bit of a delay here on the stream, I think that has been it for my recap of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Let me know. Very good stream. I really enjoyed having a conversation with you guys. Hello, Hoyfield Trash 12. I think that's how I pronounce your name. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you very much, my friends. I really hope you have a great day. And for the time being, that's been it for this live stream. I think that we have talked about everything that there is to talk about the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Don't worry if you aren't catching this from the beginning. I'm going to have a slightly edited version of this available in my channel as a VOD. So definitely check that out later if you guys enjoyed. And if you guys enjoyed this stream, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I really hope you guys enjoyed the whole time that we were talking to each other. And when it comes to videos, I will see you later this week. When it comes to live streams, I will see you after the Australian Grand Prix. The race is going to be 6 a.m. at my time, so I don't know when I'm going to do the recap, possibly on that day because we are going to have time. That is, if after the race I don't fall down to my bed and sleep for the whole day because I had to wake at 5 a.m. to watch a Formula 1 race. I honestly love doing that, so I'm not complaining, but I'm very, very much looking forward for the Australian Grand Prix. We are going to start a great run of Grand Prix after Australia. Some of my favorite tracks. Canada is back. Oh my god. Okay, so but that's a long time from now, so we are going to have a lot a long time to talk about that. But in the meantime, that's been it for this live stream. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And you can also check out some of my latest videos if you guys enjoyed this live stream. And I'll see you later this week with another video, and I'll see you after the Australian Grand Prix with another live stream for us to talk about the race. So until then, I'll see you later. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.